The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 163.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Tim Leberecht, author of The Business Romantic. Welcome, Tim, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be on the show.
Absolutely. Before we dive into your book, The Business Romantic, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us just a little bit about you personally.
Sure. My name is Tim Leberecht. I've been working in marketing for almost 20 years now, mainly in professional services. I worked for Frog Design for 7 years, which is a leading product design and innovation strategy firm. And most recently, I've been working for an architectural design firm called NBBJ. And marketing is my passion. I'm a passionate marketer, and that's also the reason why I wrote this book based on my experiences in that field and my own career.
So thank you for sharing that, Tim. And now let's jump right into that book, The Business Romantic, which was just made available for purchase not that long ago, actually January 6, 2015. And Tim, we're going to move quickly, but our whole goal here today is to cover the top questions that our listener, / future reader would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing The Business Romantic?
Well, I'm a business person. As I said, I've been in business for 20 years. And at the same time, at some point, I realized that I'm also an unapologetic romantic. And I think the two can go together. I believe we need more romance in our lives. And I believe we can find it and create it in and through business. Now, I'm not talking about office romance and flirting with your colleagues in accounting. I'm also not really referring to loving what you do or doing what you love. I'm really talking about the notion of romanticism, of experiences where your heart beats faster, where you have adrenaline rushes, moments of unexpected beauty, and moments in which we lose control, moments in which we fall in love with everything, with the world. And I believe it's very important that we romanticize business, to use that term, and re-enchant it, because I believe we're facing a great disenchantment. People are somewhat disillusioned with business. The trust in business leadership is an all-time low. We also know from a recent Gallup study that only 13% of employees worldwide are fully engaged at work. And then added to that, we are witnessing the surge of the quantification of everything. Big data is making our lives feel very small. Algorithms, tracking devices, and then the so-called quantified self applications are quantifying every single corner of our lives. And that has arrived in the workplace as well. Performance, our productivity is measured, but even our happiness and our mood is now tracked and analyzed and optimized. And in this process of maximizing and optimizing everything, making everything predictable and quantifiable, I believe we're at risk of engineering the romance out of our life, the moments of surprise and delight, not knowing what's going to happen next, the sense of adventure that I believe is very inherent to business. So my book is making a case for more romance in business within the framework of business, and it proposes very specific, concrete rules of enchantment that entrepreneurs, managers, everybody who's a professional working in a business can use to make their life at work more meaningful.
Excellent. So, Tim, we talk about it all the time with our audience, how many books come out on business every single day, every single month. And so this next question really gives you an opportunity to differentiate yours from the rest. And that's what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic.
What's different about The Business Romantic, my book, is that it is a business book and it isn't. It draws from the liberal arts, from philosophy. It is a very personal book that I've been meaning to write for years. And it does not provide the typical how-to framework necessarily only. It really is a reflection on the state of business, philosophical discourse, and yet at the same time, it does provide very specific concrete tools and techniques. I think so. That's from a formal perspective is different maybe from other business books. And then in terms of the messaging and the argument that I'm making, I think the big distinction here is there's a whole area of books that talk about purpose and the importance of having a mission and a strong vision for a company, the importance of social impact. That's all very valuable, but that's not what my book is about. My book is about romance, which includes suffering a little bit. It includes even a sense of danger, of risk-taking. So it's not only about having a strong, inspiring mission, and it's also not about HR policies or perks or employee-friendly policies. It's a little bit more about the experiences, the more intense experiences that you have at the workplace under the rubric of romanticism.
So, Tim, this next question might be a little bit awkward, but I'm basically just asking how you would suggest the reader engage with the book. Is this a book that they can jump in and jump out based on the information that they want to cherry pick at that time? Or was it really designed to be read from front to back?
I think the reader can do both. They can read the book from cover to cover, which of course every author would prefer. There's a narrative arc in there, but it's also a book that, in a way, it's heavy and it's light. You can read it in a very profound way and spend hours with it, start to finish. But you can also drop in and out, and you can just pick one of the rules of enchantment, for example, and read that and apply it. At the very end of the book, there's an appendix that's called the Business Romantic Starter Kit, which is a really light, entertaining set of specific 15 steps that everybody can take to become a business romantic. So you can start there if you want to have an easier access to way into the book, or you can start, of course, with the introduction at the very beginning.
Very good. So, Tim, now that we know a little bit of the background purpose behind the book, I really want to give you the next 5 to 8 minutes to take a deep dive into the content itself. So, will you take that time and really let the future reader that's listening right now, let them know exactly what they can get out of your book?
Sure. The book starts really with my own experience I worked in 2004 as an advanced press chief for the Olympic torch relay in Athens. And it was probably the most formative professional experience that I had. I was in Cairo with the Olympic flame on Tahrir Square, surrounded by Egyptians who were very proud, very happy about the Olympic flame arriving on African soil for the first time. And it was very intense. And I remember the intensity of the moment and thinking as I was on that square that was exactly the kind of sentiment that I wanted to have for the rest of my career. And that became my question for the following 20 years or so. So how can you keep the flame alight during the middle, when routine and processes and that's to some degree cynicism kick in and the magic of the beginning is gone at your work? And this book is trying to find an answer to that. So the first chapter is called The New Desire for Romance, in which I explore why I believe that the time is ripe for a re-enchantment, why there is disillusion with business, and what the perils are of this mindset that myopically believes in only one objective, quantified truth. It's not a book against technology, but it cautions us not to mistake the algorithmic world that we increasingly live in with the only truth in business. So it's making a case for business romanticism. In the second part of the book, I then introduce a number of business romantics. One of the greatest experiences that I had as I was writing this book is that it gave me a reason and to connect with other people who were kindred spirits. And it was very rewarding to see that I'm not the only business romantic. There are many, many other business romantics out there who live up to the principles that I illustrate. So, for example, I portray Karen Wicker, who's the editorial director at Twitter, and she's in her 60s. She's really been a veteran of the tech industry, and I found it fascinating. She has a liberal arts background, and I found it fascinating to hear more about her take on Twitter and going to work, because she feels it's an adventure. She never knows what's going to happen the next day. So she's portrayed in the book. There's also a portrait of a visioner. Her name is Priya Parker, who helps organizations articulate and live their purpose. And other Scott Friesen, a middle manager who used to work at Best Buy, and told me about the beauty of spreadsheets and how it can find meaning and elegance and beauty and a sense of romance even in spreadsheets. So there are these portraits in that part. And then the third part of the book, which is called The Rules of Enchantment, that's really the gist of the book, that provides the reader with 10 rules that he or she can apply in her respective or his respective work environment. And these rules range from give more than you take, which is a quintessential romantic principle, to keep the mystique, which is taking a stance against this need that we feel to make everything transparent and have all the information always readily available fingertips. So it's making a case for reintroducing secrecy and mystery into our workplace and customer experiences. Another principle is suffer a little bit. It is pointing out that romance, of course, is not the same as happiness. Romance means that we have skin in the game, that we can be hurt, we're vulnerable, we lose control, we suffer a little bit. So it's looking at that and what that means in a business context, and how companies, whether that is in their customer experiences or in their employee experiences, can use that principle to create a bit of friction and make the experience meaningful again. And then the last rule of enchantment with which I conclude is called stand by, stand still, do nothing. And it's talking about solitude and the importance of doing nothing, and this bias we have in business towards decision making and constant action, rather than leaning back and reflecting and being alone with our thoughts, which seems to be a very hard thing to do. And that's also a very romantic proposition, of course. The book then concludes with a discussion about why business is becoming or has become one of the main operating system of our lives. And it examines some of the ethical implications of romanticism in business. And also, of course, it asks the very important question of how does it scale? What is the ROI? Do we need to have a meaning index? Do we need to have performance indicators for romance at work? And my answer is no. The whole point of the book is that there is truth that is not quantifiable, not measurable, and we should trust that there's great value in that truth and those experiences as well, even though we might not have a very rigorous set of key performance indicators to measure the immediate return on investment here. And then lastly, the book offers an appendix, which is called the Business Romantic Starter Kit. It's actually almost like a library of books, of films, of music that the reader can read up on to get into the business romantic mood, if you will. And then it furthermore provides the 15 steps to becoming a business romantic. So very specific things, such, for example, talking to strangers on the commuter train in the morning to push yourself out of your comfort zone and making the familiar strange again, rearranging your workplace, holding mystery meetings, inviting someone to lunch whom you've never met before in your organization from another department. And other very specific small little hacks of the everyday routine that all contribute to a more romantic and more meaningful life in business.
So Tim, you went through a ton of great information, a lot of context and content that you just went through. And that's what makes this next question maybe a little bit tough to answer. It's if the reader could only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of your entire book and everything you just shared with us so far, what would you want that to be?
I think one thing that is really important is that we understand that we have the power of framing our experience at business. So the way we view our encounters, our interactions at work is really important. So we are really the masters of our narrative. We have the power to make sense of what we experience in business, and I just would encourage the reader to appreciate that and use it. The second thing I would say is just have the courage to be vulnerable. If you commit, if you put skin in the game, if you engage, if you make yourself vulnerable, I think the experience that you will have are going to be much more meaningful, much more intense. We spend up to 70% of our waking hours at work as knowledge workers, as entrepreneurs. Those are a lot of moments between the top and the bottom line. That's a lot of moments that are shaping up the story of our lives, really, our identities and the meaning that we derive from life. So I think it's worthwhile thinking about whether or not we want to bring our full selves to work with all our vulnerabilities, our dreams, our emotions, rather than just performing as a narrow version of a hyper-productive, hyper-connected professional self. So I would just say, business is is where we make or break ourselves, as the poet David Whyte said. And the more we risk, the more we bring ourselves to it, the more meaningful it'll be in the grand scheme and in the context of our whole life.
Excellent. There's some really powerful things in what you just said, and that's actually leads into our next question, which is: do you have a favorite quote from your book, something that you found that be powerful, and then can you tell us what it means to you?
My favorite quote in the book is from the singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen, and it goes, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And I really love this quote because it talks about the imperfection, the power of imperfection. And when I was like even 5 years ago, when I was a little more junior and not as experienced in my work, I went into meetings armed with data, and I was trying to come come prepared and present a flawless, impeccable presentation, and then convince others of my idea. And I got a lot of thumbs up, and people said, "Great, we're in." But I realized later that thumbs up is not the same as we're in, we're committed to this, and that you actually need to leave space, you need to leave cracks in your proposals that other people can fill, that your colleagues can co-author, co-opt. No one wants to just execute the perfect pitch or the perfect plan. And so deliberately leaving holes in your plans, making sure that they're incomplete when you present them, that they're imperfect, that there's enough space for others to fill, that there's cracks in them, cracks through which the light gets in. That was a very powerful realization for me, and it was very humbling. And that's something that I'm trying to apply in my own professional life now, more so than in the past.
That was an excellent quote, and we're going to share that in the show notes at our website, the elpodcast.com, because I think the powerful thing about quotes is it takes time to reflect and think about them, and that's tough when you're driving and doing all the things that people are doing right now as they're listening. So we will definitely put that on the website for people to check out. Tim, my last question. Obviously, we're a book-centric podcast, so I have to ask you for a recommendation. Not just any recommendation, but I'm asking that there's only one book you could recommend based on the way that it impacted your life, has created a lifestyle change for you. What book would you recommend?
Wow, that's a lot of pressure on that one book. I, First of all, what comes to mind is a quote by my former boss, Hartmut Esslinger, the founder of Rock Design, who always told me, "If you want to learn about business, go to the opera." So he said, "Don't don't read business books, not the traditional business books. Go to the opera, learn from the arts," which I thought was really fascinating. So in that spirit. And applied to business, I still think The Great Gatsby is a wonderful, wonderful book that is very true, and it's a very romantic book, of course, and the story of the unreasonable romantic quest and spending one's fortune and essentially building a fortune just to fulfill a dream or to chase an impossible dream. And the beauty of unfulfillment, if you will, and of just the vivid imagination is so beautifully portrayed in that movie. And so that's been one that has always been with me, and that has certainly influenced me.
How did you like did you think the movie did it any justice, or were you not a fan of the movie?
There's two movies, right? There's the one movie with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, I think, it's probably from the 60s or so, that I barely remember. I liked it, but I saw the newer movie by Baz Luhrmann, which came out, I think, last year or a couple of years ago, and it was very over the top, and I actually really loved it. I think it just sort of took it and played with the book in a very playful way, and took the freedom to deviate from it, and it was just such a festival of colors, of music, and just a celebration, I think, of the romance that is portrayed in the book. So yeah, I did like it.
Excellent. Okay, I always love to ask because sometimes when someone's a book lover, they end up hating the movie, or it seems like very rarely do they like the movie. So no, that's fantastic to hear, and thank you for that recommendation. But Tim, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listener to get more information on you and your book, The Business Romantic?
You can go to www.thebusinessromantic.com. You can also find the book in every good bookstore on Amazon, iTunes, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, and other online retailers, or you go to www.thebusinessromantic.com.
Excellent. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us today.
Thank you, Wade. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like a chance to win this book by Tim, The Business Romantic, check out the elpodcast.com and become a VIP. And you can also check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com if you'd like more information on Tim or The Business Romantic.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.